The small exploration ship drifted silently through the darkness of space. Inside, John Miller checked his navigation systems and sighed. He was far from home, mapping uncharted regions beyond human territory. As a former military officer now working as a freelance scout, he enjoyed the quiet of deep space. It was peaceful out here, away from the noise of Earth. His radar beeped. John frowned and leaned forward. 5 unknown vessels approached his position. They were larger than his small scout ship and moved in a formation that suggested military training. Unidentified vessels. This is human explorer John Miller. I come in peace on a mapping mission. John broadcast on open frequencies. No response came. Instead, the 5 ships spread out, surrounding him. John's military instincts kicked in. This wasn't a greeting party. A harsh, clicking voice finally broke through his communication system. Unknown vessel. You have entered Vexari Confederation space. Power down and prepare for boarding. John checked his star charts again. There must be some mistake. My maps show this as unclaimed territory. I'm happy to discuss. A bright flash cut off his words as energy weapons fired across his bow. Not a direct hit, but a clear warning. John's training took over. He pushed his engines to maximum power and dove his ship between 2 of the alien vessels. They weren't expecting such a quick response and fired too late as he slipped past their formation. I don't want to fight. John broadcast again. Let's talk like reasonable beings. The alien ships pursued, firing repeatedly. One shot grazed his ship's rear shields. John gritted his teeth and spun his vessel in a tight loop, a maneuver that would strain even the most hardened military pilot. He brought his ship directly behind one of the pursuers and fired his own weapons, set to disable, not destroy. The alien ship's engines sputtered and died. The other 4 vessels hesitated, clearly surprised. Using their moment of confusion, John targeted the weapon systems of another ship, leaving it defenseless. 2 down, 3 to go. Last chance for peaceful discussion, John offered, though he was already plotting his next move. The remaining ships attacked with renewed fury. John's small vessel shook with each near miss. He couldn't outgun them, but he could outfly them. He led them into a dense asteroid field nearby, where his smaller ship had the advantage. The alien pilots were skilled but cautious. John wasn't. He flew dangerously close to spinning rocks, using them as shields and weapons. One pursuer crashed into an asteroid while trying to follow him. Another took heavy damage from debris. The last alien ship held back, watching as John emerged from the asteroid field alone. Still want to talk? John asked over the comm. His radar showed the damaged alien vessels regrouping. After a moment of silence, the harsh voice returned. Human, you fight with unexpected skill. We will withdraw, but know this. You are in Vexari space now. The Confederation will be watching. The alien ships retreated, leaving John alone with his damaged vessel. He released a long breath and began checking his systems. The encounter troubled him. He needed to report this to human authorities immediately. Aboard the Lid Vexari ship, Commander Kez, Thrax watched the human vessel depart on long-range scanners. How did one small ship defeat our patrol? His second-in-command asked, mandibles clicking nervously. The human fought like our best warriors, Kez, Thrax replied. Yet their databases say they are explorers and traders, not a warrior species. He paused. Send all battle recordings to High Command. They must know about these humans. As reports spread through Vexari space, stories of the human who defeated 5 ships grew with each telling. By the time it reached the Vexari High Command, John Miller had become something else entirely in their eyes. Not just a skilled pilot defending himself, but the first evidence of a dangerous new species of born warriors. The High Command ordered increased patrols and observation. They needed to know more about these humans and the threat they might pose to the Confederation's expansion plans. 5 years passed since John Miller's encounter with the Vexari Patrol. During this time, more humans ventured to the edge of Vexari space. Traders, Explorers and scientists all sought to learn about this new alien civilization. The Vexeri watched each human with growing unease. Kate Anderson stood on the bridge of her diplomatic vessel. As an ambassador for the United Earth government, she hoped to establish peaceful relations with the Vexeri Confederation. Her ship approached the designated meeting point, a neutral space station built specifically for first contact protocols. "Ambassador, we're receiving a transmission from the Vexeri delegation," said her communications officer. Kate nodded. "Put it through." The screen flickered to life, showing a tall, insect-like alien with deep blue exoskeleton and compound eyes. "Human vessel, this is High Commander Vex Tour. You may dock at Bay 12. Your delegation will be limited to 3 representatives." "Understood, High Commander. We look forward to meeting you," Kate replied with a practiced smile. Her security chief, Sam Hayes, frowned beside her. "I don't like this, Ambassador. Intelligence reports suggest they've been building up military forces along the border." "All the more reason to establish diplomatic relations," Kate said. "We need to clear up any misunderstandings." The Earth ship docked smoothly at the space station. Kate selected Sam and Science Officer Olivia Green to accompany her. They stepped through the airlock into the cold, metallic hallway where 6 armed Vexari guards waited. "Follow," one guard said simply. They were led to a large chamber with a round table. 3 Vexari officials sat on one side, including High Commander Vex Tour. His compound eyes studied the humans with obvious suspicion. "Welcome to Neutral Point Station," Vex Tour said. "We have agreed to this meeting to discuss your presence at our borders." Kate smiled warmly. "Thank you for meeting with us. The United Earth government wishes to establish peaceful and beneficial relations with the Vexari Confederation." "Peace," Vex Tour repeated, mandibles clicking. "Yet every human we encounter displays extraordinary combat capabilities. Your kind defeated our patrols multiple times." "Those were misunderstandings," Kate explained. "Our people defended themselves when attacked, but were not aggressors." Another Vexari official leaned forward. "We have studied your ships. They all contain weapons." "Standard defense systems only," Olivia interjected. "Most of our vessels are research or trade ships." "A convenient disguise," the third Vexari said. The meeting continued for hours with little progress. The Vexari remained convinced that humans were hiding their true warrior nature. As the human delegation prepared to leave, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. "What's happening?" Kate asked as guards rushed into the room. "Pirates," Vex Tour hissed. "Crawl raiders. They attack this station regularly for its resources." The station shook as explosions hit the outer sections. The guards escorted everyone to a secure room, but the door jammed halfway. 3 crawl raiders, large, reptilian beings with crude armor, appeared at the end of the hallway, firing energy weapons. The Vexari guards took defensive positions, but 2 fell immediately under the raiders' assault. Sam reacted instantly, pulling a small stun weapon from his boot. Olivia grabbed a metal pipe that had fallen from the damaged ceiling. Kate used her diplomatic tablet as a shield, deflecting the shot back at one of the attackers. The 3 humans moved with surprising coordination. Sam disabled one raider with precise shots. Olivia struck another with the pipe, using the narrow hallway to her advantage. Kate tripped the third, causing him to fall into his comrades. In less than a minute, all 3 raiders were unconscious or retreating. The Vexari stared in stunned silence. Even their civilian representatives fought with the skill of trained soldiers. "Are you injured, High Commander?" Kate asked, helping Vex Tour to his feet. "No," he replied, studying her with new intensity. "You fight well for a diplomat." "Basic self-defense," Kate said with a shrug. "Most humans learn it." Later, as the humans returned to their ship, Vex Tour met with his advisors. "You see," he said, "they claim to be peaceful, yet even their ambassador fights like a war champion. These humans must be a species of eternal warriors, each one deadly from birth. We must prepare our defenses accordingly. The myth of human warriors grew stronger, despite Kate's diplomatic efforts to prove otherwise. Zithril sat alone in his research chamber aboard the HFY science vessel. Screens surrounded him, each showing different images of humans. Unlike most of his kind, Zithril was fascinated by these strange beings, not fearful of them. "Computer, show me the latest observation data," he said. New images appeared, captured by stealth drones that had ventured into human space. They showed ordinary human settlements, people walking on streets, children playing in parks, elderly couples sitting together. Zithril's mandibles clicked in confusion. According to HFY military reports, humans were eternal warriors, born for combat. Yet these images told a different story. He carefully documented everything he saw. Humans of all ages and abilities, most showing no signs of warrior training. There were schools teaching young humans about art and science, not just combat. There were hospitals caring for the sick, farms growing food, and theaters for entertainment. His research assistant, a young HFY named Kilvex, entered the chamber. "Professor, the High Command requests your progress report," Kilvex said. Zithril hesitated. "Tell them I need more time. My findings are unexpected." The military grows impatient. They want information they can use against the human threat. "That's the problem," Zithril said, pointing to his screens. "I'm not convinced there is a threat. Look at these images. Do these look like eternal warriors to you?" Kilvex studied the screens. Perhaps they are training grounds, or perhaps the warriors protect these weaker members of their species. Or perhaps we've misunderstood humans completely, Zithril suggested. The next day, Zithril stood before the HFY High Command. 7 senior officials sat at a raised table, looking down at him with compound eyes that revealed no emotion. "Professor Zithril, present your findings," ordered Supreme Commander Vexilov. Zithril activated his presentation. "Esteemed leaders, I study human behavior for 2 years now. My research suggests that humans are not the warrior species we believe them to be." He showed them images of human cities, schools, hospitals, and farms. "These are civilian structures. Humans have children, elderly, and people of varying physical abilities. Most humans never engage in combat their entire lives. Explain, then, how every human we encounter defeats our best soldiers," said War Minister Thraxfor. "I believe it's adaptation, not innate ability," Zithril explained. "Humans can learn combat skills when needed, but most prefer peaceful activities. Their strength comes from flexibility of mind, not warrior breeding." The room filled with dismissive clicking sounds. "This contradicts all our military intelligence," Supreme Commander Vexilov said. "Your research must be flawed." "Or perhaps our intelligence is incomplete," Zithril countered. "I recommend we establish peaceful contact with human civilians to learn more before any military action is considered." War Minister Thraxfor stood up. "The decision is already made, Professor. We will establish a militarized zone at our border with human space. Your research, while interesting, changes nothing." "This is a mistake," Zithril insisted. "Humans are more complex than we understand. Your research will remain classified," Supreme Commander Vexilov declared. "Return to your ship. Continue your studies if you wish, but report only to this council." Defeated, Zithril returned to his laboratory. He knew the High Command was making a dangerous error based on incomplete information. He needed to find a way to learn more about humans, to prove his theory. Later that night, Zithril made a decision. He encrypted a message and sent it through hidden channels to human space. The message contained his research and a warning about the HFY militarization plans. He addressed it to Greg Johnson, a human scientist whose work on interspecies communication Zithril had secretly studied. "If war comes," Zithril whispered to himself, "let it not be because of ignorance." 3 days later, his computer alerted him to a response from Greg Johnson. The human scientist had received his message and agreed. They needed to work together to prevent a conflict based on misunderstanding. The transport ship, Morning Star, floated through space, its engines humming softly. Captain Lisa Carter checked the navigation screen and frowned. Something wasn't right. "Frank, are you sure these coordinates are correct?" she asked her navigator. Frank looked up from his station. "Yes, Captain. We're on the approved route to Colony 7. Lisa shook her head. "The star patterns don't match our charts. I think we're off course." The Morning Star carried 200 civilians, families moving to the new human colony. Children played in the recreation area. Elderly couples watched stars through viewing ports. No one seemed worried. Suddenly, alert signals flashed across the control panels. 4 large ships appeared on their sensors, approaching rapidly. "Unknown vessels closing in," Frank reported, his voice rising. "They're not responding to hails." Lisa recognized the ships from security briefings, Vexari military vessels. All crew to alert stations, passengers to safety areas. The crew rushed to their positions while Lisa opened the communication channel. "Vexari vessels, this is Captain Lisa Carter of the civilian transport Morning Star. We may have strayed off course. We mean no harm and request safe passage." The largest Vexari ship moved directly in front of them, blocking their path. A harsh voice came through the speakers. "Human vessel, you have entered the Vexari defensive zone. Power down your engines and prepare for boarding." Lisa looked at her first officer. "We have no choice. We're carrying families, not soldiers." She followed the Vexari instructions, powering down the ship's systems. Soon, they felt the bump of the Vexari ship attaching to their airlock. 10 heavily armed Vexari soldiers boarded the Morning Star. Their insect-like heads turned in all directions, weapons ready. They seemed prepared for a battle. "Take me to your warriors," the Vexari commander demanded. Lisa stepped forward. "We don't have warriors aboard. This is a civilian transport. We're carrying families relocating to a colony." The Vexari commander's compound eyes studied her. "All humans are warriors. Do not attempt deception." He pushed past Lisa and ordered his soldiers to search the ship. They moved through the corridors, opening doors to find confused passengers. Families huddled together. Children cried. Elderly people looked on with fear. The commander returned to Lisa, clearly confused. "Where are you hiding your combat forces?" "I told you, we don't have any," Lisa said firmly. "These are ordinary people. Teachers, farmers, engineers, doctors, families with children and grandparents." The Vexari soldiers gathered around their commander, clicking their mandibles in what seemed like a private conversation. After several minutes, the commander turned back to Lisa. "You will come with us. Your ship and these civilians will be held until we determine the truth." "You can't just take these people prisoner," Lisa protested. "They've done nothing wrong." "The High Command will decide that," the commander replied. News of the captured transport spread quickly through Vexari space. At the military headquarters, Supreme Commander Vexeloth called an emergency meeting. The human ship contained no warriors, War Minister Thraxfor reported. Only the weak and untrained, small ones, old ones, non-fighters. "Impossible," said one general. "All humans we've encountered fought like elite warriors." Zithril, who had been summoned to the meeting, spoke carefully. "Perhaps this confirms my research. Most humans are not warriors by nature. Or perhaps," Supreme Commander Vexeloth said, "we have discovered their weakness. These must be the protected class. Those the warriors defend." War Minister Thraxfor's mandibles clicked excitedly. "A valuable discovery. We can use these civilians to test the humans' response. Hold the transport and its passengers," Vexeloth ordered. "Let's see what the humans will do when their weak ones are threatened." As the Vexari planned, they had no idea what forces they had just set in motion. On Earth, emergency alarms were already sounding as news arrived of the Morning Star's capture. Red emergency lights flashed throughout the United Earth Government headquarters in Geneva. Officials rushed through hallways, carrying data tablets and urgent reports. Inside the main chamber, 24 representatives sat around a large table, their faces grim. President Laura Wells looked at the latest report. 200 civilians captured, including 53 children. The Morning Star entered Vexeri space due to a navigation error. Admiral William Porter stood at the display screen, pointing to a map of the border region. The Vexeri have established a militarized zone here, without warning or announcement. The Morning Star had outdated charts. "What do they want?" asked one representative. "They've made no demands," replied Foreign Secretary Ryan Black. "Our attempts at communication have been ignored." Admiral Porter's expression hardened. "I recommend immediate military action. The 7th Fleet can be ready in 48 hours. "War should be our last option," said Defense Minister Patricia Jones. "We need to understand why they took our people." Intelligence Officer Diane Russell stepped forward. She was small and quiet, but everyone in the room respected her analysis. "Madam President, I believe this is a cultural misunderstanding," Diane said. "Our intelligence suggests the Vexeri think all humans are warriors. Every encounter they've had with humans has reinforced this belief." "That's ridiculous," someone muttered. "Not to them," Diane continued. "Think about it. John Miller defeated a patrol while outnumbered. Ambassador Anderson's team handled the pirate attack with ease. From their perspective, humans have extraordinary combat abilities. So they're afraid of us?" President Wells asked. "Yes, and confused. They captured a ship full of civilians, expecting warriors. Now they don't know what to think." The room fell silent as everyone considered this information. President Wells turned to Admiral Porter. "What forces do we have available?" "The 7th Fleet includes 15 warships, plus support vessels," Porter replied. "We can show them real human warriors if needed." Diane shook her head. "With respect, Admiral, that approach would only confirm their fears. We need to show them who humans really are, not just warriors, but scientists, teachers, doctors, artists." President Wells nodded slowly. "Prepare the 7th Fleet, Admiral, but not just combat vessels. I want our hospital ships, research vessels, diplomatic corps, and cultural exchange teams. Show the Vexari the full spectrum of humanity." "A soft approach won't free our people," Porter argued. "We'll have the military ready if needed," the president assured him. "But first, let's try to solve this through understanding." As the meeting ended, Diane received an urgent message on her tablet. It was from Greg Johnson, a scientist working on the outer colonies. The message contained research from a Vexeri scientist named Zithril, showing evidence that the Vexeri completely misunderstood human nature. Diane rushed to catch President Wells before she left. "Madam President, we have a potential ally among the Vexeri. A scientist who understands we're not all warriors." "Good. Make contact immediately. We need all the help we can get." In space near Earth, the massive ships of the 7th Fleet prepared for departure. The fleet flagship, the UES Harmony, was a diplomat-class vessel designed for first contact situations. Surrounding it were vessels of all types: hospital ships with red crosses painted on their hulls, research vessels with extended sensor arrays, agricultural ships carrying samples of Earth plants, and yes, powerful warships with weapons currently powered down. Behind them came ships carrying engineers, teachers, artists, and families, the full display of human diversity and capability. Admiral Porter watched from the Harmony's bridge as the fleet assembled. "I still think this is a mistake," he said to his second-in-command. "Maybe," Commander Hither Martinez replied. "But if it works, we'll save lives on both sides." Porter nodded reluctantly. "Prepare for jump. Let's show these Vexari who humans really are." The massive fleet moved into formation, preparing to enter faster than light travel. Not just warriors going to battle, but an entire civilization reaching out across the stars. Supreme Commander Vexeloth stood in the Vexeri Observation Center, surrounded by nervous officers. The large screen before them showed hundreds of ships appearing at the edge of their territory. The human fleet had arrived. "Count them," Vexeloth ordered, his voice steady despite his fear. 217 vessels of various sizes, reported the censor officer. 40 appear to be military class. The others, we are unsure. War Minister Thraxfor clicked his mandibles anxiously. They have come to rescue their weak ones, just as we predicted. Prepare all defense systems, Vexeloth commanded. Alert our fleet. On the human flagship UES Harmony, Commander Heather Martinez prepared for first contact. Unlike most diplomatic vessels, the Harmony carried a small contingent of soldiers, but they remained out of sight. Heather wore a simple blue uniform with minimal decorations. "We're within communication range," her communications officer said. Heather nodded. "Open all frequencies. Broadcast in their language." She stood before the camera and spoke clearly. "Vexeri Command, this is Commander Heather Martinez of the United Earth Government vessel Harmony. We request dialogue regarding the civilian transport Morning Star and its passengers. We come seeking peaceful resolution." In the Vexeri Command Center, the message played on the main screen. The officers watched Heather's calm face with suspicion. "It must be a trick," said one general. "They will attack once we lower our defenses." Zithril, who had been called to advise, spoke up. "Supreme Commander, I recommend we respond." Notice they sent a communication officer, not a military leader. Vexeloth considered this. "Very well. Establish communication." When the connection opened, Heather saw the insect-like face of Supreme Commander Vexeloth for the first time. His compound eyes reflected the light of multiple screens around him. "Human fleet," Vexeloth said, "your presence in our territory is an act of aggression. Explain yourself." "We have come for our people," Heather replied calmly. "The passengers and crew of the Morning Star are civilians who entered your space by accident. We request their immediate release." "Your vessel violated our security zone," Vexeloth stated. "The consequences are justified." Heather maintained her composure. "Supreme Commander, there seems to be a misunderstanding about humans. May I suggest a meeting to discuss this directly? You may select the location." Vexeloth paused, surprised by the offer. "You would place yourself in our custody." "Not custody," Heather clarified. "A neutral meeting under standard diplomatic protocols. I am prepared to come aboard your station with a small team to discuss the situation." The Vexeri commanders conferred privately. They had expected an immediate attack, not an offer to talk. "Very well," Vexeloth finally agreed. "You may dock at our command station. 3 representatives only. No weapons." "Agreed," Heather said. "Additionally, I would like to offer your representatives a tour of our flagship afterward, so you may better understand who we are." This unexpected offer caused confusion among the Vexeri. Zithril stepped closer to Vexeloth, speaking quietly. "This is our chance to learn more about them. I believe they are sincere." Hours later, Heather's small shuttle docked at the Vexeri command station. She was accompanied by Dr. Carl Winters, a xenobiologist, and Ben Lopes, a cultural specialist. None carried weapons. They were escorted to a large meeting room where Vexeloth waited with his advisors and Zithril. The Vexeri guards watched the humans carefully, expecting them to attack at any moment. "Thank you for meeting with us," Heather began. "Before we discuss the Morning Star, I'd like to clarify something about humans." She activated a small projector that displayed images from Earth, cities, schools, farms, concert halls, and hospitals. "This is who we are," Heather explained. "Most humans never fight in their entire lives. We are scientists, farmers, artists, builders, healers. Yes, we can defend ourselves when needed, but war is not our purpose." Vexeloth watched the images with growing confusion. This contradicted everything they had believed about humans. "Then explain," he demanded, "how your kind defeats our best warriors in every encounter." "Adaptation," Heather replied simply. "Humans specialize based on what we need to do. When threatened, we adapt quickly, but most prefer peaceful lives. For the first time, doubt crept into Vexilloth's mind. He glanced at Zithril, who nodded subtly. Perhaps they had been wrong about humans all along. Zithril stood before a group of Vexari officials, translating human concepts into terms his people could understand. Behind him, Heather Martinez waited patiently as he explained her words. The humans divide labor among their population, Zithril said. Some focus on growing food, others on building, others on healing, others on teaching. Only a small percentage trains specifically for fighting. War Minister Thraxvor clicked his mandibles in disbelief. Then how do they defend themselves? How did they defeat our patrols? Commander Martinez has explained this, Zithril replied. Humans are adaptable. When threatened, even their non-warriors can fight, but fighting is not their primary function. Supreme Commander Vexilloth turned to Heather. We wish to see your ship now. We must verify these claims ourselves. Of course, Heather agreed. We've prepared transport for your delegation. Hours later, a group of 7 Vexari officials, including Vexilloth and Zithril, boarded the UES Harmony. The massive human ship dwarfed their shuttle. Inside, the Vexari were surprised by what they found. The first area they visited was the medical bay. Human doctors treated patients, while nurses moved between beds. Dr. Carl Winters explained the equipment and procedures. Our ship carries specialists in 20 different medical fields, Carl said. We can treat almost any condition or injury. Next, they visited the science labs, where researchers analyzed data from space observations. The agricultural section contained plants from Earth growing under special lights. Engineers worked on machinery in large workshops. The Vexari noticed that none of these humans carried weapons. None wore armor. They seemed completely focused on their specialized tasks. Where are your warriors? War Minister Thraxvor finally asked. We have a security team, Heather explained. But they're only a small part of our crew. Would you like to meet them? In the security section, the Vexari found humans practicing combat techniques. Unlike the scientists and doctors, these people moved with the skill that matched Vexari expectations of humans. A young Vexari officer approached Captain Alan Foster, who led the security team. You fight differently than the others. Why? This is my job, Alan explained. I trained for years to become good at security and protection. Dr. Winters trained for years to become good at medicine. We each have different skills. The Vexari delegation continued their tour, growing more confused with each new section. They saw classrooms where children learned from teachers. They watched artists creating paintings and sculptures. They visited a large room where humans played music together. Finally, they returned to the conference room. Supreme Commander Vexilloth seemed troubled. If what you show us is true, he said slowly, then we have misunderstood humans completely. We want peaceful relations with the Vexari, Heather assured him. But first, we need our people returned safely. Vexilloth nodded. I will order the release of your civilian ship and its passengers. Zithril stepped forward. Supreme Commander, I must speak. My research confirms everything we've seen today. Humans are not the warrior species we feared. They are diverse, with many different types of people and skills. But they defeated our forces so easily, one general objected. Because we attacked them, Zithril explained. Humans defend themselves when necessary, but they prefer peace. Vexilloth turned to Heather again. Your ship contains beings of many different functions. Healers, builders, thinkers, and yes, some warriors. Is this normal for humans? Yes, Heather replied. Our strength comes from our diversity. We each contribute different skills to our community. Later, as the Vexari returned to their station, Vexilloth was silent, deep in thought. The humans were nothing like what they had believed. Years of preparing defenses against a warrior species now seemed foolish. What should we do? War Minister Thraxvor asked. Release their civilians immediately, Vexilloth ordered. Then prepare for peace talks. We have much to learn about these humans. On the Morning Star, Captain Lisa Carter received news that her ship and passengers would be freed. She smiled with relief, knowing that humans had shown their true strength, not through fighting, but through understanding. 1 month later, the grand meeting hall on Neutral Point Station buzzed with activity. Humans and Vexuri moved around the room, talking in small groups. What had begun as a tense standoff was now turning into the beginning of cooperation between species. Alan Foster stood with a group of Vexuri military officers who asked him questions about human training methods. "If you are not born warriors, how did you defeat our best fighters?" asked a young Vexuri officer named Kexval. Alan smiled. "Humans adapt to whatever we need to do. I chose to become a security officer, so I trained for it. But before that, I was a teacher." The Vexuri's compound eyes widened in surprise. "You were a knowledge giver and then became a warrior. This is not possible for Vexuri. We are born to our roles. That's the main difference between our species," Alan explained. "Humans can change. We aren't limited to one path." Across the room, Zithral and Greg Johnson finalized plans for a cultural exchange program. 10 human scientists would visit Vexuri research centers, and 10 Vexuri scholars would travel to Earth. "Your people have much to teach us about adaptation," Zithral said. Greg nodded. "And your people can teach us about specialized excellence. Imagine what we can accomplish together instead of fighting." Supreme Commander Vexloth and President Laura Wells sat at the main table, signing the first official peace treaty between humans and the Vexuri Confederation. The document established trade routes, communication protocols, and borders that both sides agreed to respect. 1 month ago, I believe humans were the greatest threat the Confederation had ever faced, Vexloth admitted. "Now I see you may be our greatest opportunity." President Wells smiled. "Misunderstandings can lead to conflict, but understanding leads to peace. We look forward to a long friendship with the Vexuri." After the treaty signing, Commander Heather Martinez walked with War Minister Thraxvor through the station's observation deck. Through the large windows, they could see ships from both species moving peacefully through space. "Our military council has adopted a new training program," Thraxvor said. "We call it the human approach. It teaches our soldiers when not to fight." "That's the true strength of humanity," Heather replied. "Not that we can become warriors when needed, but that we can choose peace instead." On the lower level of the station, Captain Lisa Carter reunited with her crew from the Morning Star. They watched as human and Vexuri children played together in the station's recreation area. The children had already figured out games that worked despite their physical differences. "They don't see enemies," Lisa observed. "They just see new friends." The station's main announcement system activated, and everyone turned toward the central screen where President Wells and Supreme Commander Vexloth stood together. "Today marks a new chapter for both our peoples," President Wells said. "What began as a dangerous misunderstanding has become an opportunity for growth and cooperation." Vexloth stepped forward. "The Vexuri Confederation officially recognizes the United Earth government as our allies and friends. We have much to learn from each other." Applause filled the station as humans and Vexuri celebrated together. Later that evening, Zithral stood alone at a window, watching the stars. Greg Johnson joined him, carrying 2 drinks. "What are you thinking about, my friend?" Greg asked. "About how easily we could have gone to war," Zithral replied. "All because we thought humans were eternal warriors." Greg smiled. "In a way, that myth saved us. You respected us enough to be cautious rather than attacking immediately." "And then your fleet arrived," Zithral said. "Not to destroy us, but to show us who you really are. That's the true story of humanity.